Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Conqueror's Way podcast. Jeremy Barkey here. Today, welcoming a first-time guest, Luke McCown. Luke, thanks for joining us today.
What's up, Jeremy?
Hey, I'm doing good. Appreciate you joining us. For those that don't know, you may not be a football fan, but if you are a football fan, you've heard of this name. You've heard of Luke. You've probably heard of Josh. You've probably heard of this McCown name. Has been a name associated with quarterbacks, and we're going to talk about some of that today. But Luke, apart from setting all these records at Louisiana Tech, where Terry Bradshaw was a quarterback, I'm right in my recollection that Terry Bradshaw beat out Phil Robertson at one point in time for that job, right?
Yeah, that's correct, and that's an interesting story in and of itself. That Phil was a pretty big deal coming out of high school, and the story goes that as he was competing in spring ball or whatever, early spring football, duck season was in order, and so he would always come to practice decked out in his duck garb. I mean, face paint, duck lanyards, camo, the whole bit, mud boots, all of it. And eventually the coach said, "Hey, you've got to choose. Like, is it going to be duck hunting or is it going to be football? Like, we got to have more time commitment here." And he chose duck hunting, and it turned out quite well for him. But Phil was obviously, just passed away. But Phil was an amazing guy, The first time I ever met Phil, I met him in a church, full duck garb. I mean, like Sunday morning, but dressed out in his camo, like he had just come out of the duck blind and Bible in hand. And I never had the pleasure of hunting with him. But I know his family, and they're tremendous people. But he told the story, and it just the short little blurb was, "I chose the ducks, and Terry chose the bucks." And so, but they say that you would have never heard of Terry Bradshaw had he stayed and played football. That's what the legend is.
Like he was that good.
That's what they say. Yep.
That's amazing. Well, in a second here, actually, let's not wait more than a second. I want to pull up a picture here. I think you're going to recognize this guy who we're going to pull up here. Does this guy look familiar to you, Luke?
Man, he looks like a 12-year-old kid.
Man, here's what I'm seeing. We played in similar eras, and I say I played very loosely. I played Monday through Friday. You played Monday all the way through Saturday, and then had a career on Sunday. But here's what I'm seeing from back in the day. I'm seeing the whack patch. I'm seeing a wrist call. We should probably talk about that a little bit. Yep. I'm seeing the old school helmet that is certainly not a Revolution Speed or anything like that. And I'm noticing the QB towel. I'm even seeing the spat. So you were a spat guy back in the day.
You know it. Yeah, I actually think that this game, this game came after a game we played against Nevada Reno in Nevada, and I threw an out route, and I got stepped on, rolled up my ankle, and so it was always one of those things, like you don't ever want to like let the defense know which ankle it is, right? So I went ahead and spatted them both up. We weren't allowed to back then, like if, small schools that I think we were an Adidas cleat at that time.
Okay, yeah.
And they didn't allow us to spat. Like you got in trouble for it. And so it had to be a medical reason. So, I rode that medical reason out for the rest of the season, though.
Well, hey, man, it certainly looks like it's working. This is like the classic QB pose, like just commander on the field. The play has broken down. You've taken this thing off script. This does not have a rollout to smash feel to it.
Nope.
Do you actually, do you remember this play, or is that crazy talk?
I do. No, I remember this. I remember this quite well. I threw it to a guy named Alan Stark in the back of the end zone and for a touchdown. I believe this was Boise State in 2001.
Wow.
We're at home, and this was for the WAC championship, basically. I mean, the team that won this game won the WAC, and it got flushed out. It was a scramble. I got flushed out, and he wrapped around the back of the end zone I believe it was Allen. It was either to Allen or it was to DJ Curry. But
Okay.
had similar plays in the same game. But yeah, I remember this one quite well.
It's cool. Now, we've had the privilege to coach together and do stuff like that. Highland Park this last winter, that was a good time. And I've heard a bit of your story. I'd like to hear more, but then I know the people listening may not know it as much. Why don't you walk us through your football story? And I know you're a humble guy, but feel free, man. Tell it like it is. I know that Louisiana Tech was not your only offer coming out of high school. It's pretty cool to hear what made you settle on that. But just kind of walk us through the eyes of that younger version of Luke and what you were, kind of looking at and deciding at that time of life. And then we'll just let the conversation roll from there.
Yeah. Well, I had two older brothers that were ahead of me, both Division I quarterbacks. Randy went to Texas A&M in '94 and was ended up being a 3-year starter between 97, 98, 99. And then my older brother Josh went to SMU in '98. Started as a true freshman, had 3 different head coaches in 3 years. Really kind of a crazy deal, and ends up transferring for his senior year to Sam Houston State. That was back in the day when transfers, if you made a lateral move transfer, you had to sit out a year.
Sit out. Yep.
And so he transferred down to essentially what's FCS now, 1AA, Division I, 1AA to Sam Houston. Had a fantastic year. Was Walter Payton Man of the Year, Walter Payton Award finalist, not Man of the Year, Walter Payton Award finalist, which is their Heisman Trophy that year. Got drafted in the 3rd round. I was so I had 2 older brothers that were highly touted coming out of high school. Randy was all state, everything, football, basketball, highly recruited nationally. Josh was a 1-year starter as a senior, but lit it up. Had a tremendous year that year. Had a few offers, SMU being one of them, and decided to go that route. And so I had a bit of a name out there. That's not to say that I wasn't a good player, but there was reason to look. That's kind of what they had reason to. I knew many of the coaches at Texas A&M and at SMU by the time I had come to. Now we were all kind of consecutive, so by the time coming through Jacksonville High School in Jacksonville, Texas, by the time I got up there, people were tired of hearing about a McCown at quarterback, and so, but I had a name. I had a name, and pretty much all I had to do out there is go out there and not mess it up. And so I had some ability. I had some athletic ability. I was a All-State honorable mention in basketball, All-State in football. Had every offer that you could imagine. Nationally, I was in some publications ranked as high as number 2 as quarterbacks go being recruited. Your buddy Jeff Smoker was on that list. Brock Berlin was number 1. Brock's a buddy of mine now.
Wow, that name, yeah.
So, you named the school, and I had an offer. As long as I showed some amount of interest in it, my head coach and my dad kind of forced me to at least listen to Bobby Bowden when he called, even though I didn't want to go to Florida State. Like, yeah, how the heck could you not? So, there was only one school that didn't offer me in the state of Texas, and that was Texas A&M. Ironically, my brother went there. Had a conversation with Mac Brown on the phone when he was at Texas. He called me. He said, "Hey, will your brother allow you to go and wear burnt orange?" And I said, "Probably not." And he said, "All right, have a great career." It was pretty short call. But Miami, Florida State, Michigan State, Purdue, Baylor, A&M, Texas, LSU, Alabama, you name it, I had it. And again, having 2 older brothers kind of allowed me to see, the atmosphere of college ball as it pertains to your abilities and what your goal is. And Randy went to a national powerhouse. A&M was routinely a top 5 team with the Wrecking Crew defense and Dat Win and all this other stuff.
Yeah, wow.
But offensively, they were just, they were 3 yards in a cloud of dust. They were going to run it hard on first and second down. They were going to play action maybe on third down. And that was pretty much the extent of their passing game. And so, obviously, getting to college ball, you have the desire to not stop there. At least I never understood anybody that said, I just want to play college ball and I don't want to go any further. Like, if I'm going to play college ball, I'm going to try to make it to the highest level.
Sure.
And so, again, having the foresight of two older brothers, or at least their experience, going, I'm going to go somewhere that gives me an opportunity to display what I do. I'm a quarterback and I throw the ball. I'm not an option guy. I'm not a runner necessarily. I want to throw the ball, and that's what the NFL does. And so, having that opportunity, watching Josh go to SMU and fight through coaches that were kind of on the bubble. SMU, I want to say this was their first year, maybe their second year, coming off of probation, where they had some scholarship limitations.
Yeah.
Some illegal activities that had gone on, some money, things that are legal now. They got to go on probation for.
They're just ahead of their time.
Yeah, different times. And I looked at. I didn't, just because Louisiana Tech came calling, I didn't push them to the side because they were a smaller, lesser known Division I program. When they came in, it was Tim Rattay and Gary Croton, who was a coach at BYU through all the Detmer years, just throwing the ball all over the place. And so when they came calling and pursuing, I was like, man, they throw the ball a lot. This is kind of intriguing to me. And so my final two came down to Oklahoma with Bob Stoops, and they were throwing it all over the yard with Josh Heupel, and Louisiana Tech, and praying about it and visiting these schools, and it was really clear. I'll never forget. We took our visit, and I want to say they were a week or so apart, but took our visit to Louisiana Tech. Ruston was fantastic. Small town, reminded me of home. 2.5 hours away, and I'll never forget my dad and I leaving, hopping onto I-20 as we headed back west, coming back to Texas. And I mean, we hit the pavement, and I said, Dad, this is where I'm going to school. This is it. He goes, Are you sure? I said, Yep, I know for a fact this is where I'm going. And in my younger days, I was a believer back then. I followed Jesus since I was 7 years old, or at least knew about it and as much as a 7-year-old can at that point. But what I chalked up to this gut feeling, I understand now, is the Holy Spirit affirming in me what I've been praying. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, I've been praying for clarity on this. I've been, clearly have a good feeling about it. And so I get there, and I wanted a red shirt. I was 177 pounds, stopping wet. And felt like redshirt was the way to go. And 3 games into the season, the starter gets hurt, and so halfway through the game 4, the backup was playing. Halfway through game 4, Coach Bicknell comes to me at halftime and goes, "Hey, it's your call. It's your red shirt. But if you're ready to play, we need you." And I mean, what 18-year-old kid is going to go, "No, Coach, I want to stay red." Yeah. Like, I was ready to go. So. Stepped in and played. We ended up losing that game against Tulsa, but played well. Won the next one at home against, I believe it was, lost the next one. Lost the next one at Middle Tennessee, and then go to Auburn and go to Miami. So my first 2 road starts were Auburn and Miami in their homes. Now, this Miami team, you'll recognize some. I have just over here. I actually have the program of the scouting report. I was looking through it the other day. Dan Morgan, Ed Reed, Mike Rump, Al Blades, Philip Buchanan, William Joseph, Brian McKinney, Clinton Portis, Andre Johnson, Santana Moss, Jeremy Shockey, I mean, it's a who's who
Yeah.
of a football
Wait,
team.
wait, did you just recite the NFC Pro Bowl team from
was.
2003,
I
basically?
promise you, it's unbelievable. Jonathan Vilma wasn't even playing. He was a freshman. Okay.
Wow.
Kellen Winslow was a freshman. DJ Williams was a freshman. There's
Yeah.
these guys that you just go, gosh, no wonder they were. But that was my second start or third road start, and I played extremely well in both those games. We were throwing. I didn't know what I was doing. I was running around throwing it, just trying to get away, trying to survive. And so, anyways, had a really good career. Started 42 out of 43 games straight. Didn't miss a start once I became the starter, and ended up being a 4th round draft pick. And I always say I feel like I would have been probably drafted a little bit higher had it not been for Eli Manning, Phillip Rivers, Ben Roethlisberger, these guys that I was drafted with that'll all be wearing gold jackets. I might have been drafted higher than the 4th round had they, stayed another year or come out.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So 4th round pick to Cleveland, and ended up starting 4 games as a rookie on a really bad team, and I was a player that wasn't prepared for that.
Sure.
But I was always a very confident guy. I always looked at myself as like, just let me get on the field and I'll show you what I can do. Right? It's just a matter of time. I had a really good preseason. I want to say I didn't start very many games as a pro through 13 years, so I always leaned on my preseason stats, which are like Hall of Fame preseason numbers. I mean, it's really good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so had a really good preseason. Through like the 4th quarter, the halfway through the 3rd quarter and the 4th quarter that I got to play as a 4th round pick, usually as a rookie. Started 4 games and ended up getting traded after my rookie season. New coaching staff, new general manager, everything, and not at all what I had anticipated this thing going. Right? I mean, I viewed my NFL career that was going to take shape just like my college career. Like, I'm gonna step in, I'm gonna play, and I'm gonna become the guy, and I'm gonna take Cleveland Browns. I'm gonna take them to the heights of success. And draft day, a year from being drafted, I got traded on draft day to Tampa Bay, and experienced some things there, some injuries, and some highs and lows. And
who was there at the time there?
John Gruden was the head coach. It was Brian Greasy and Chris Sims when I got there.
Got it.
When I got there, so 2005. 2005, Brian was starting, and about week 5, I think, week 6, he takes a shot to the knee against the Dolphins, tears his ACL, and Chris Sims becomes our starter, leads us to the playoffs. We go to we play the wild card game against the Redskins and Mark Brunell, and they beat us. They beat us. Now Chris throws a beautiful ball to Edel Shepard on our sideline. It's a catch every day. It's a catch in the end zone, and it was called incomplete. Different replay rules back then. It ended up not going our way, but it was complete all day. I was standing right there. I know it was complete, but we ended up losing that game. Chris enters the season as the starter in 2006. Brian ends up signing a free agent deal to Chicago, and so I'm kind of ushered right into this backup spot, and I'm loving it. John Gruden is notoriously hard on young quarterbacks. His system is very hard. It's very wordy. He puts a lot of pressure on you, and I took a lot of pride in being able to handle that mentally, being able to handle that much work, and so the last practice of the last day of OTAs, matter of fact, the last period of OTAs in June, I tear my ACL. I'm running out, scrambling out, making a cut I've made 1,000 times, and tear my ACL. And so that was kind of the beginning. I'm getting long-winded just on a little bit of story here, but that was kind of the beginning of a career that seemed like it was always right on the cusp of achieving that goal or that dream of becoming a starter, and then for some reason or another just missing out on it. and we'll probably dive more into that as we go. But I come to find out that God had me in the NFL for far different reasons than what I thought I had.
Amen, man. Yeah, I can't wait to unpack some of that. It's funny. I go back to an earlier stage of life, and I think I'm not sure my whole story on this right here, but Michigan State for me was like getting to the top for me. I was not recruited at all out of high school. It was not that kind of thing for me. The way God opened up this small little door for me to move back to the quarterback position as a freshman in college when I hadn't even played that position for 3 years, and then just put enough tape together to have it to land in East Lansing and get a preferred walk-on spot in a phone call 48 hours. It's like, it's only a God did it thing. I can't take any credit for any of that. But nonetheless, when I got it, immediately the dream started to unfold, like, hey, Rose Bowl. And, I had always been a Michigan State guy, which isn't always the case in the state of Michigan. I think our older brother, I'll give you a them older brother. In our state, they call themselves a little something different relative to brother. I'm not even going to dignify that. They are our older brother. Most people lean that way. That's kind of the mainstream, But for me, my older brother went to MSU, so I loved Michigan State from go. And all those things start to come to mind for me. And then in a different way, but ultimately the same outcome, I get to the end of that experience and look back and see, I get why I was here. And it had nothing to do with that original playing dream that I thought. So I definitely want to come back to that in your conversation, because I'm pretty confident faith's going to play a part in that.
Yep.
But for a while we're talking quarterback, let's still have some fun here. I got to ask you, have you seen any of these quarterback episodes, Netflix?
Man,
do you watch these things?
Absolutely. I binged watched them like last week. Knocked them all out in about 2 days. I mean, just couldn't get enough of it.
What's your biggest takeaway? Like when somebody like you is in the league at that position for 12 years, sees something like that, what are your big takeaways?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. And now, I mean, like you said, there are guys that played have a different perception of who these other players are than most of the public. Like let's take Jared Goff for instance. Jared is highly underrated by the public, highly underrated by the media. He kind of gets slighted a little bit for how good he is. Super cerebral, better arm than most people think. Extremely tough, and a guy that just wins, right? He's been a winner since he's gotten into the NFL. Well trained by Sean McVay and that offense out there, and so you're getting to see the fruits of it. And as he continues in his age, if you will, you really start to see his ownership of an offense. He gets to put his spin on how he sees guys and routes that are being run. And so Jared's often regarded in NFL circles and quarterback circles as a guy that can really play. And he doesn't get near the credit that he probably deserves outside of NFL circles. Yeah. Kirk obviously is an amazing dude. I've known Kirk a long time. My wife and I, when Kirk and his wife, we shared the same agent for our whole careers. We used to go to a conference, a Christian outreach conference every year called Professional Athletes Outreach, and my wife and I were core group leaders. And I want to say Julie and Kirk's first year there as rookies, we were their core group leaders, and so we got to know them real well. The grind, Kirk shows that quite well throughout the show of how hard it is, the toll it takes on your body, especially as you get older, and then the way it affects your family. Julie was quite honest about how hard it is. It's not just the guy. It's not, your family's impacted, your kids are impacted. The move from Minnesota to Atlanta and overnight, and the friend groups change, and doctors change, and schools change, and all that. And so, it's a tremendous life. It is. We're paid extremely well, and it's what we choose, but it's not easy.
Sure.
It's not easy at all. And so, I think Peyton and the producers of the show do a great job of outlining all of the facets of what it takes to be a quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, it's fascinating to watch that stuff. And, there's elements, even in hearing you talk about your story, like you're back at La Tech and you're a freshman and you kind of get the look like, what do you think? And you're like, let's do this. Yeah. I think, we might have some young listeners that check into this. You said something that really stuck out to me. You said, hey, before I was actually ready, I went out there and basically I balled like I was ready. Yeah. I went out. Hey, so for you, this comes natural to you. What would you say to the young quarterback that's out there that, hey, even at maybe the high school level, they're thinking, boy, this is a lot for me to understand, even my high school playbook. Like, when am I allowed to give myself the license to just go cut it loose and play, whether or not I would ace my classroom test or not? Yeah. How do you coach a kid that maybe gets stuck in that before they just let their God-given ability let them do what they do?
Yeah. So Bill Walsh used to say this. He said this about, and for those high school listeners don't know who Bill Walsh is, legendary coach for San Francisco, and author of the West Coast Offense, which probably at least half, if not more than half, of all the NFL systems are loosely based off of or built on top of. Coaches like Mike Holmgren and John Gruden and the Shanahans that kind of came out of this this Bill Walsh kind of a system. He would say this about Steve Young. Steve came to San Francisco wildly athletic for the time. It's probably not as, but certainly for the time, very athletic, a runner when running wasn't a deal for a quarterback, just kind of a wild stallion. And Bill Walsh would say that he would much rather have to train a wild stallion to be calm than to try and make a calm stallion become wild. It doesn't work the other way, or at least it takes a lot longer. A guy that's very systemized and kind of, by the book, stuck in it. I'm only ready when the book says I'm ready. It's very hard for him to let loose. It's much easier to take a guy that just goes out and plays the game instinctively, and then start putting some parameters on him, going, hey, this is the footwork we're going to take on this, or we're going to teach you to play within the flow of the offense or in the pocket a little bit more, whatever. So I always thought, man, and I didn't learn that until I got in the NFL, but it makes sense to me that I'm going to go out and I'm going to play like I just instinctively cut it loose, no regrets. My interception count in college, it qualifies hey, he played with no regrets. I tried some throws that I probably shouldn't have. And it cost me 60 some odd interceptions through 4 years. But man, I wasn't going to let a moment go that was presented to me and just turn it down. Yeah. And that may have been a fault, but I learned, I believe that it helped me along the way become a better player, because it wasn't a I didn't have to change the molding of who I was. I had to learn to make who I was better. Yeah. Does that make sense? And so it does. And that came from the help of a lot of coaches and a lot of time. But I at least showed that man, when it's time to become a wild horse, you got to let him run sometimes. And yeah, I think I think you're better off in the long run understanding who you learn your limitations a lot better when I just go out and play than to play with stern limitations already passed on to you. That's a hard way to learn how to play the game.
Yeah. Acing that whiteboard exam doesn't make you qualified,
right.
to go do it. Just get out there. I liked how you said you kind of add the parameters later to, accentuate your ability and decision making and all that. It makes a lot of sense. Actually, as I'm hearing it, it makes a lot of sense even in a faith conversation. How many times is it easy to get caught up in our own head about what we're not worthy of or capable of or enough of? And I think, and sort of building a bridge to that faith part of this conversation, I think our Heavenly Father is saying, I'm not asking you to ace the whiteboard first.
Right.
I'm asking you to get in the game.
Yep.
And I'm asking you to walk with me, play with me in your corner, and I'll take care of the rest over time.
Yeah.
That's exciting to go there. Hey, you teach quarterbacks now. And by the way, from one guy's humble opinion, when we served at that camp together, obviously my role at the camp was Conqueror's Way. It's character. It's those things. I had very, very minimal impact on the football side of it, but I had a chance to just kind of watch you do your thing. Now that you're a teacher of this game, what recommendations would you have for other teachers of the game? I mean, you played at the highest level. You played at the highest level and arguably behind one of the absolute best in Drew Brees to ever do it, right? So the reality is you go from there and now all of a sudden you're coaching kids in high school. I'm assuming you're not saying, okay, how do I be Sean Payton to this 16-year-old? Like you've gone through this process of saying, understanding the 14-year-old, 15-year-old, 16-year-old. What are some tips now you'd offer on the other side of this to the coach? What lessons are you learning relative to how to teach young men this position? What's 2 or 3 pointers you'd give to the coach listening?
Yeah, I would say number one is Sean used to always say this, so I've copied it, but robots can't play quarterback. Robots can't play football. They're programmed to do one thing in a system, right? Very systematically, one thing after another, and they're programmed that way. Football is not a program with a known amount of variables that only do certain things. It's an unknown, unlimited amount of variables, and they change rapidly. And we've got to give license to the player to be able to react and respond to things that you didn't necessarily program them for. We used to say this in terms of route adjustments for receivers, for your tight ends, your slot receivers that sometimes have options on a route, whether to take it high or bend it flat or stop on a route, or how they're gonna come out of a break. And he would say, I don't want you to run lines on a page. I'm going to give you the install sheet that's going to have a line that says run here, turn there. That's just a parameter. I want you to get to this spot however you get there. Travis Kelce today is one of the league's leading guys in just how he feels the game, feels spots, and gets in, finds a way to get in Pat's face to get the ball. But there's rules guys and there's guidelines guys. And as a coach, you've got to know who's a guy that only needs guidelines. He's going to get it right. You just got to give him kind of bumpers on the lane, not so that he doesn't get in the gutter, but he doesn't need rules. You can't do this, you can do that. He needs guidelines to make decisions within the variables that are given to him within a given play. And so I think that, I walk around and I don't coach my own kids at school. I coach, I'll train them, here or in our training sessions or whatever with my other quarterbacks. But I think that as I go around to these schools and I listen to coaches coach the kids that I'm training, there are times I go, man, you're trying to put him in a box that he doesn't fit in. That's not who he is. he's a guy that needs to feel the game a little bit. Maybe his drop's a little different. I appreciated that so much because when I got to New Orleans and I got behind Drew, I was a veteran player. I was in year 9 at the time when I got there, played 4 more years after that. And Sean, recognizing a veteran player who had kind of been in some different systems, I'd learned to do things a little bit the way that I was comfortable in doing them. He never once said, no, this is the drop I want you to take. He said, I want you to feel it. And Drew, let's just call it 4 verts. Drew is a 5 quick from the shotgun. He's going to take 5 quick and throw.
Boom.
And I'm a 3. I'm going to extend my 3. I'm going to be real smooth and deliberate with 1 hitch and go. And Sean was like, if that's how you feel it, I want you to work it that way. Mm-hmm. As long as it comes out on time and in rhythm within the framework of the play. And so I think we can do a disservice sometimes to the players and really hamstring them a little bit when we say this is the only way it's going to get done. I don't. Yeah. I think we've got to give them some freedom to feel the game instinctively, as long as they show that aptitude of ability to manage responsibilities within the variables that approach them in the game, adequately or positively in regards to how it affects the play.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Even in that, I go back to, and I don't coach on the regular anymore. I left public education. Boy, we're at a decade ago now. Last year I did some volunteer coaching, which was fun, which is always nice to be re-exposed to this thing that we love. But the reality is I remember as a young coach, I'd sat in some pretty good quarterback rooms. You mentioned, Jeff Smoker, but hey, Ryan Van Dyke was a highly recruited dude. Bill Burke was a phenomenal quarterback, guys that I got to be around. And you get to be enlightened in some of these additional variables, and it's fun, and you start to be, oh, I know. And then I made the mistake as a young coach to say, well, now I'm going to try to educate on and control every variable. Yep. And then I realized, man, I left no room for the simplicity of these things for these young guys. Like, I want to go back to the first quarterbacks I taught and give them an apology and be like, I'm sorry I tried to put this on you, Yep. This game is a simple one. And at the end of the day, the more prepared I was as a coach to know what our best chances were to be effective, just rep the heck out of those during the week and then do what you just talked about. Okay, we just created that repetition, created a comfort and a guideline. Now go play.
Yep.
Now go play. If I'm prepared enough, we can do that. With that said, like for you now coaching these young kids, what would you give repetition and simplicity? Where would you grade those two things on a scale of 1 to 5? 5 being the highest, 1 being the lowest. How important or unimportant do you think repetition and simplicity are in coaching young people?
Yeah, extremely important. Again, I'll take, from Bill Walsh, and I had the pleasure of spending a day in a film room with Bill Walsh when I played in Tampa Bay, and he would always say, it takes 1,000 reps to master one play, to master it, to own it, to know it like the back of your hand, to understand. And again, that's from the standpoint of not just, what do you mean 1,000 reps? He's running a shallow, and he's running a 10-yard dig, and he's running an out, and he's running a post. Like, that's not right. But it's when do I get to these things within the plethora of variables that come within a play, whether it's timing or blitz or busted pass protection, so I'm getting rushed when I didn't think I was getting rushed, or coverage that I thought it was going to be that it's not it. And the 12 different ways they can run this coverage, but a little combo, all the different things, right? And so reps are extremely important. It's one of the reasons why I believe that not only quarterback being the hardest position in all of sports, but backup quarterback being the hardest position in all of sports, because you don't get reps. You go 17 weeks and you don't get any reps. We have to rely on either what I've done before in the past, the reps that I got in OTAs 3 months ago, back in the spring, the 2 drives, maybe 4 drives that I got in the preseason games, and then I have to go out and make my offense that was just run by Drew Brees not miss a beat.
Yeah, snap count, the whole everything,
Well,
right?
they all be the same, right? Location of the ball has got to. My receivers have been catching his ball for 16 weeks, and here we are, the last week of the season. We got to go make the playoffs. We got to go on a 2-minute drive, and they got to know the ball's coming out the same time, the same way. The snap counts, and so it's the hardest. It's absolute hardest job there is for what's at stake, and then what's expected.
Yeah.
Simplicity, I think, can be a misnomer in that that depends on the level of confidence and experience, right? So what I view as simple is going to be far different than the guy that's in his 3rd year.
Yeah.
Right. And so I would say that reps is far more important than simplicity goes. But we always used to say this, that things become simple when you're confident, and confidence is only born out of experience.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's born out of demonstrated ability. If I've demonstrated the ability to do something, then I'm confident about it, and that thing that I've done becomes a little more simple.
That's great. Hey, and I think, again, man, it's either you or the Holy Spirit doing it, but you're teeing up these faith bridges relative to a walk with Christ, right? Again, there's something that the Holy Spirit does in us when we get the reps, when we practice.
Yep.
When we practice something, we're just getting reps, whatever it is. And it's funny, sometimes we view practices as these informal, hey, Monday through Thursday, scout team type stuff. Right. When the reality is one of the most respected professions in the world is that of a doctor, a physician. And what do they run? A practice.
Yeah.
They run a practice because at the end of the day, they've prepared themselves, they've become competent in a field or whatever. But what's really happening? They're practicing with every patient. And it's no different in our walk with the great physician, the Heavenly Father. He wants to get reps with us, right? Why don't you now let's just take this theme and let's curveball it. And let's go over to your faith walk.
Yeah.
Tell us what role your faith had in terms of making you that confident player that got to play at a great level. And maybe even just like a quarterback is as good as the team around him on the field, hey, probably it could be said a faith journey is only as productive and will only bear as much fruit as the team a believer puts around themselves to walk and be discipled in that journey of faith. Can you just kind of go from there and share what that experience has been like in your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So going all the way back to high school, My story is I'm born and raised in a Christian family. The type of family that was Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, prayer group. I mean, all of it, right? Like mom and dad, like don't come tell them your stomach hurts. Like you're going to church. You ain't getting out of it, right? Doesn't matter.
Say Sunday. How about Sunday night? Were you a Sunday night family?
Absolutely, every Sunday night.
I didn't get to watch a Super Bowl until halftime of, I think it was Dolphins-Niners because you're always coming home at halftime. I didn't watch my first Super Bowl, full Super Bowl, I think was Patriots-Packers in the Superdome. I remember that being the first one.
Oh, yeah.
And that was only because our church got really progressive and the youth pastor, who, by the way, was my brother, had a Super Bowl party. So it was all in the context of church. Up until then, it killed me. I would beg and plead, can I just miss Sunday night? Nope. And I would just make it a plan. I'm going to be home at halftime of the Super Bowl. Yeah.
Well,
sorry, go ahead.
Growing up in a Texas Baptist church, now you got to realize how serious we take our football in the Baptist church in Texas.
Okay,
right?
okay.
So
okay.
Come Super Bowl time, like it's on in the gym. Like so we're going from like our nighttime service and we're just or vice versa, we're gonna watch like the first half, have a real brief nighttime service, and then get to the second half. Like
now we're talking.
Yeah,
now we're talking. That's the way to do it. Yeah.
So I was saved at 7 years old. I always say that I didn't begin my walk with Christ. Obviously, like 7-year-old, I knew that I was a sinner and I needed a Savior, right? And that's the basis of it. Jesus came to save that which is lost, and I knew I was dirty, and there was only one way to get me clean. It wasn't how much I washed myself. It wasn't how much I went to church. It wasn't how much I repented of. It was Jesus is the only one that can wash me, and that's all I needed. I was good with that, right? I didn't begin walking with Jesus until I was in about the 9th or 10th grade. And I came across a verse at a FCA meeting in Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verses 4 and 5, says, it is better not to vow than to make a vow and not fulfill it. God takes no pleasure in fools. He would rather you not make a vow than to make a vow and do nothing about it. Right? And I remember reading that and going, okay, well, what does that mean about me? Like, yeah, I'm a good kid. I go to church. I obey my parents. I don't do, like, I'm not into parties or girls or drugs or drinking or all the other things. And that was God's way of going, yeah, that's good. That's part of it. But the other part of it is, what about me? What are you doing for me? The other part of this vow is you're going to follow me. How are you pursuing me? Where's the relationship at? And so from that moment on, it became, and it was like a light bulb. I understood my need for Scripture, my need for prayer, my need for interaction with the body of believers, my need for accountability, and so all these different things started lining up. Well, I used to write a scripture on my wrist tape in high school. It was Proverbs 16:9. And I played my entire career from high school, college, and the NFL. I never missed a game where I didn't write it. And it says, a man's heart plans the way, but the Lord directs his steps.
Amen.
And what that did for little did I know that would become a life verse for me throughout the NFL. That in terms of what I always imagined my career would be or should be, and never materialized to that level. One injury in 2006, knee injury, missed opportunity to become a starter. Week 3, when Chris ruptures the spleen, I was the backup at the time, but I'm on injury reserve because I tore my ACL. Okay, I work my way back. I get an opportunity to play. At the end of 2007, I play really well. I start 3 games. We go to the playoffs. They go to Jeff Garcia, who had pulled a calf muscle, which is the reason why I started 3 games at the end of the year. But one of those games is probably the reason why I played 13 years. I was in New Orleans, beat New Orleans on a last second touchdown pass to Jeremy Stevens, and so we go through that year, go to 2008, and they're trying to sign me to an early extension. Like a low ball offer. 2009, I'm going to be a free agent after the 2008 season, but I'm going to play again in this year. I'm going to play in 2008. Jeff's going to get hurt. I'm going to play well again, and you're going to have to pay me. I'm going to become your starter, or I'm going to go be somebody else's starter. And so they start playing the game, and we get to week 8. Very similar situation in 2007. We get to week 8. We're 8-4. We're in Atlanta. Jeff gets dinged up the week before. I'm going to start, and so I'm going to start the game in 2008 against Atlanta. We're going to win the game. We're going to go to the NFC South. We're going to win the NFC South. We're going to go to the playoffs again. And on the field, an hour before kickoff, my quarterback coach, Greg Olson at the time, comes out and goes, "Hey, they're going to start Brian." All week, I took every first team rep. All week, I'm the starter. I'm going to start this game. And all because I turned down their low ball offer, and they didn't want me to get to free agency and demand a certain contract.
Business. Yeah.
They sat me down. And again, I'm kind of going, like, why? What's the difference, right? So for the next, I end up signing an extension Coach Gruden gets fired. Raheem Morris becomes a starter. I end up signing an extension. I get traded at the end of training camp in 2009 anyways. I get traded to Jacksonville. I play there. Back up David Garrard in 2010 or in 2009. I'm competing with him in 2010, playing really well, playing really high level ball. There's rumblings if David stumbles, if he doesn't play as well. David about 3 years before had a really strong year, got a really big contract, and had just been a good player. Never took them to the next level.
Yeah, I remember it. Yeah.
And so they brought me in to be a guy that kind of pushed him. Let's see if a little competition will make him elevate.
Sure.
And so there were conversations like, if he stumbles a little bit, they may make a change, all this other stuff. He plays well in week 1. We win. We go to San Diego in week 2. He struggles. They pull him at the beginning of the 4th quarter. I go in, I play, and I'm playing really well. But it's a blowout. It's 41-8, I think, when I'm in the game. But I'm moving the ball, and I'm doing some good things. 41 seconds left in the game, and I'm making. I get out of the pocket. I'm going I'm going to hit a little 1-2 and dive in the end zone, and I bust my ACL again. And they were going to make a switch after that week. They were going to make a switch, and I was going to be the starter in week 3 for the rest of that season. Presumably, I was playing rough, and so it's another missed opportunity. Like, you got to be kidding me! Like, there's 3 now in the first 6 years of my career where I felt like I could have been the guy, and for reasons that are beyond my control, I wasn't playing bad. It was one thing I was playing. I wasn't playing bad. It just wasn't what God wanted for me. And that ends up kind of being the theme for the next several years. Fast forward to just so it doesn't get too long. Fast forward to 2013. I signed with New Orleans, and we draft a guy in 2004. Myself and Benjamin Watson get to New Orleans at the same time in 2013. Ben's a dear friend, first-round pick to New England, tight end out of Georgia. And we had kept up for years. Just as we played each other, we would talk. And so we get to be teammates finally. Ben loves the Lord, extremely faithful man, best-selling author, tremendous speaker, like all the things. I want to be Ben when I grow up.
Yeah, heck yeah.
And so we get to New Orleans, and we kind of have this vibe like, hey, we're not going to be in the league very much longer. We need to make an impact. We need to leave this locker room different. Well, the way that we do that is we need to find somebody to pour into, to kind of disciple, to show, to raise up as a leader that's confident and competent in their faith and able to spread it through the locker room. Well, 2014 rolls around, and we draft a guy named Brandon Cooks in the first round. And so the beginning of that season, Ben and I start praying about who God wants us to pour into. And we're in Detroit. It's like week 6 or 7. We're in Detroit. And we would have chapel on Saturday night. And chapel was always right before our team meeting. And so Ben and I would sit after chapel ended. We'd just sit and visit and hang out and talk to each other and pray and whatever. Just kind of share what's going on. And so we're talking. We're like, all right, so who's God telling you, who you've been praying about? And Ben was like, well, you go first. And I kid you not, about that time, the doors at the back of the room that we're in open, and here comes Brandon Cooks. And Brandon walks in, and he sits down, and he goes, hey, guys, what's going on? I say, hey, Brandon. He goes, can I ask you guys a question? I say, sure. He said, will you guys disciple me?
Wow, get out of town. That's great. Man.
Straight, like flat like that. I looked at Ben like, is that who God was telling you? He's like, yeah. Like, man, this is a total God thing. And so for that whole year, we walk Brandon through the Word. We break down the book of John. We dive into Romans a little bit, of all books, and we watch him grow in his faith, and he starts owning it. And so Ben and I both re-signed. We come back in 2015. Now, I hadn't played a game since early 2011. 2015, week 2 against Tampa Bay, Drew bumps up his shoulder. And I've been talking about my preseason highlights, right? For the last 2 years, as a preseason player, as a backup quarterback that only got to play in the preseason for New Orleans, I was playing really high ball, really, really high ball. And when I say that, like not third and fourth quarter, like first and second quarter against the other team's first and second string guys. So I'm feeling good about how I'm playing, and they are as well. And so I hadn't played, but a regular season game I hadn't played since 2011. Drew gets bummed up, so we entered 2015. Drew, what was I guess it was Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay week 2. So we're going to week 3 against Carolina, and here we go. I'm getting a start, my first start in 4 years, and I got I'm very confident, very comfortable in who I am. That's the other thing I want to just briefly. By this point in the league, I was super comfortable with who I was as a player.
And what year are you at this point?
This is 2013. 2015 would have been year 11 and 12.
12. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. 11 12. All right.
Because when you get to be around a guy like Drew, as a backup quarterback, most of us backup quarterbacks, we feel like just give me a chance and I'll become somebody's starter. Okay, the league rarely gets it wrong. Like they missed on Tom Brady. They probably missed on Kirk Cousins. He was probably better than the 4th round pick. But usually when they say you're a 4th round pick or they say you're a backup, you probably are. They rarely get it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And so you tend to view yourself a little differently than what the league says, right? Because you're not going to tell me who I am. I'm better than that. I know I am. But when you get to be around a guy like Drew, it's really easy to go, okay, I'm not like that.
Yeah. Got
that
it.
guy's
different.
And so that was such a blessing for me because I became very comfortable in my skin.
Yeah.
I became very comfortable with who I was as a player. I knew what I could do and I knew what I couldn't do. And that made me better. I became a much better player because I wasn't trying to convince Sean Payton that I was better than Drew Brees.
Yeah.
I was just going to go out there. I was going to execute the offense. I was going to be who I was. And that made me really good for several years as a backup quarterback.
Which brings its own value, which is why you're retained for that many years.
Which is why you're kept for that long, right? Yeah. So heading into week 3, I hadn't played since 2011, but I'm feeling very comfortable. We're playing the number 1 defense in the league at the time, Carolina. They're super hot. I think they win 15 games that year. They go to the Super Bowl, get beat by Denver, right?
In San Fran, yeah.
And so I play extremely well. We get beat, but I play extremely well. I want to say I completed my first 18 passes. I don't think I missed one until after halftime. If I did, I was 18 of 19 at halftime.
You're in the zone.
I was in the zone, playing really well. And we end up getting beat. We lose by 5, I think. I make a throw to Brandon in the back of the end zone. I felt like Josh Norman, who was kind of an unknown guy but had a career year, bid on something. I gave him a chance, and Brandon was trying to get down here and catch it, and Josh Norman went up and fully extended. It was a great play by Josh, and so we lose that game. But all the thoughts come back. Hey, you can do this. You can go be somebody's starter. This is about you now. Your career's about you. You can go do this. There's rumblings. Hey, McCown can be a bridge in the off season for somebody. And I'm feeling super good about it. Right? I'm at the end of my career. I've only got so much time left, and here I go. I'm finally going to get a chance. Week 8, we run a fake field goal. I'm the holder, right? I'm the placeholder. We run a fake field goal against Indianapolis. I throw it to Ben Watson. He catches it. He gets tackled on the 1-yard line. I get hit as I throw. I hit the ground, and I rupture a disc in my back. Like the most random thing ever. And I'm out for the rest of the year. Mm-hmm. And now all the thoughts about me, about what I might accomplish or what I might get in the off season or whatever, totally gone. But here's the blessing in it. Because I was on injured reserve now, I spent a lot of time in the therapy pool, right?
Yeah.
And so Brandon Cooks walks in. This is towards the end of 2015. So 2 years into discipling Brandon Cooks. And he walks in, he gets in the hot tub. I'm in the cold tub, he gets in the hot tub, he's getting ready to go out to practice. Maybe vice versa, it doesn't matter. And he starts asking me about baptism. And I say, Brandon, go look in your Bible and go look up all the places where the word baptism or baptized was used. And he does, and he comes back. He's like, there's like 280 some odd, whatever, and he gives me the numbers. Like, yeah. I said, what'd you learn? And he says, well, I learned, because he was asking me, do I have to get baptized in a church? Do I have to get baptized by a preacher?
Sure,
and
right,
like, Go read. I want you to read about it, and then you can tell me what you learned.
Right.
So he does. He goes, I didn't have to get baptized in a church at all. I was like, that's right. And it didn't have to be a preacher either. He said, that's right. He said, as a matter of fact, there was one guy that was baptized like in the dirt, like in this, like we talked about Philip and the Ethiopian eunuch, right?
Yeah.
And I said, that's right. And he goes, well, then will you baptize me?
Let's go.
Man, I'd love to. Are you kidding me? He goes, no, like today, after practice right here in this pool. He said, I can't, he's like, I don't want to wait on this anymore. And so I go get Ben and we talk to him and we baptized Brandon right there.
Man,
that's
great.
Had I been consumed with me and my mission and what I thought was coming after the season, that's what my mind would have. I may not have been available to be ready to field that question, be ready to impact his life for the cause of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And I may have been too deep in film study or preparing for my next gig. It was about me.
Mm-hmm.
And I retired in 2000. My last season was in 16. I retired in 17. I officially retired in 18, I guess. But I remember having conversations with people. When we retire as players, we go through and we do these brain and body assessments, and you go through all the kind of the psych evaluation just to make sure your brain's healthy and all this other stuff. Mm-hmm. And so they were asking me all these questions, like, well, man, like, are you disappointed in your career? And it's like, well, yeah, it didn't work out how I wanted it to, but man, I'm very, very grateful for how my career turned out, because at the end of it all, I learned what I was there for, and that's the best blessing that you can have, is you to find out your purpose, to know your why. And it took me 13 years to get there, but I finally figured out, man, I was here not for me. It didn't work out my way. I was here to make disciples. If nothing else, I was here for Brandon Cooks, and maybe that was only it.
And that's it.
But I left the league not dissatisfied at all. Not unfulfilled at all. Disappointed at some of the things, the injuries and missed opportunities, but not. I didn't leave going, man. I didn't leave bitter.
Yeah.
Hey, God, this is all you. You did this, and I'm comfortable with who I am.
So you had a lot to endure in that journey. That, again, because it's not happening in the spotlight. People think, because, hey, when you say the hardest job as a backup quarterback, what does the public typically say? The best job is the backup quarterback, because everyone, you're the greatest one, the starter gets all the heat, whatever, so you've got that perspective. And you shared that with us, which is a fascinating perspective, given your vantage point, and the competitor in you never dies, even though you're number 2 on a sheet of paper somewhere, and you're managing that. So plenty to endure in that 13-year career. What role, obviously there's a faith that you talk about when you made that decision in high school to start walking with Christ, meaning, hey, not only is he the same Savior I knew when I was 7 years old, but at 15 years old, I decided he's going to be my Lord too. And that's always in our journey and our development, the understanding that Lord and Savior is actually 2 different things.
That's right.
I get embarrassed to say it took this guy a little longer to figure that out than I probably should have. But anyways, God's grace covers me in it, so we're good. But the reality is while you had that relationship with, the vine in essence, and we're talking John 15:5, you were a branch, he was the vine, you knew that. Something tells me there was a community around you that you could lean into while you endured those things as well. Can you talk about the community that you had around you? I know you mentioned Ben. I've heard Drew's a believer, but whatever that was just true to you, how did that community, what role did that community play in helping you endure the setbacks, the struggle, the storm, the challenge, all that?
Yeah, so one of those early when I got to Tampa Bay was Josh Bidwell. And Josh was a longtime punter in the NFL, punted for Green Bay, punted for Tampa. And I want to say Josh's second year in the NFL, he was diagnosed with testicular cancer. stage 4, and went through a lot of really tough stuff, and came out the other side healthy. Hasn't dealt with anything since then like that. But his attitude and his approach to every day was so joyful, because he faced things that were really dire. He faced things that it wasn't necessarily like, facing an injury that can be solved with surgery or facing getting cut on a team. Like, you're really faced with life and death. You're faced with something a little bit, a lot more serious than what I've experienced. And you come out here so joyful, and with a mindset that looks to serve and is not looking to your own interest, right? And so that was one of the quick ones. And then a couple of chaplains that we had, Doug and Stephanie Gilcrease, that showed us how to minister, that taught Katie and I just how to love on a group of people that come from different areas. And then Anthony and Shelley Johnson in Jacksonville, who were helped us navigate the racial differences in a locker room, and helped us overcome some things that we never felt like were obstacles per se, but I'll never forget Shelley telling Katie, like, the way that you guys host, we've not, like, you guys can have crossed racial boundaries in as far as ministry goes that we've not seen other players be able to do. And so that's not patting ourselves on the back, but that's how we were trained. That's like what Doug and Steph showed us, and what Anthony and Shelley showed us was how to serve our team in different ways, but all the while pouring into us things that we would take on to going to Atlanta and kind of being one of the veteran spiritual leaders for a year in 2012, and then going to New Orleans, where there wasn't a chaplain per se, where me and Ben are the ones that are organizing Bible studies and team prayer and all these other things. And so, it was extremely important in shaping and molding who ultimately God decided we would be in the NFL as missionaries, ultimately missionaries in the NFL, because we got picked up and moved in ways that we didn't necessarily want to. And God was like, hey, I've got other work for you here, or other training for you here. And so he would trade us, or opportunities would run out, but this door would always open back up. And so those are a few of the ways that God kept ushering in people in our lives to accomplish His purpose. Which goes back to a man's heart plan is the way. I wanted my career to be one thing, but God directed the steps to be what He wanted it to be.
That's it. And you had to be willing to adjust that change. You had to be willing to say, we're going this way. Last thing I want to touch on is you mentioned Ben Watson, and it's funny, I've had a chance to talk about the Conqueror's Way to some different coaches groups. And I had one coach come up to me after a talk and say, hey, have you seen The Forge? He asked me about it, right? Okay. And at the time I hadn't, but after I saw it, I'm like, I know now why he asked me if I had seen it. Not just like the logo that's behind me, right, has a thing, and that obviously is what it is. And we don't have to get into that now relative to why the Conqueror's Way and all that. But here's what it did mean. When I watched it, first of all, I noticed that your buddy Ben, with the Conqueror's Way, I've had a chance to talk to some coaches groups about the book and all that. And at one of the talks, I had a coach come up to me after and say, hey, have you seen this movie, The Forge? So when you mentioned Ben Watson, my mind goes to this movie. He has a cameo in it. And he's a part of a group, a community of brothers that obviously plays a central role in the story. I highly recommend the movie to anybody who hasn't seen it, but I won't say more than that as to not ruin it. But anyways, the concept of the forge is one that we talk about, right, in the Conqueror's Way. Now, we use an analogy of a train, and how just like a piece of iron ore is converted into this locomotive form that carries out a full use, there's this melting down, there's this heat, there's this pounding, there's this molding and reforming, which you say all that in one simple word. There is a forging to take that raw iron into a usable form, which is a locomotive, which serves a bunch of purposes. The concept is, and where I'm kind of going with this is, I'm curious, you are now in this stage, you're post-football, right? If football dominated your identity, and you and I have both known folks where when football ended, it was kind of a sad deal. You know, I've got one person in my history, Charles Rogers, which, you know, it's funny, a lot of people maybe today don't even know this name, but when you talk about him and you talk about that dude, like, this was that guy, right? But unfortunately, football, too much of the identity, and now all of a sudden when that's gone, who the heck am I? And what's the point of all of it? You talk about the blessing of discovering a purpose and saying, you know what? Football's just a vehicle. It's what God gave me some gifts to do that I used, did my best, worked hard at it to bring glory back to his name and all that. But football player, quarterback even, wasn't who you are. It was just that thing. My question to you is, now that you're on the other side of this and you're mentoring and you're coaching and you're discipling and doing all the things you're doing, are there specific ways now that you can look back to all those things you had to endure? Those disappointments of being on the cusp from being the guy in a franchise and all these. Are you starting to see, looking back, like very specifically how God was using certain things to mold you and forge you into this new mission field he now has for you post-football life?
The probably the easiest, well, maybe not easy, probably the most relevant way that I can relate to kind of what my career became and to what I am now is that like, who cares if you started 120 games? Like, who cares? That I just turned 44 years old. I don't mean this to be morbid at all, but I'm halfway home. That's general statistics would say I'm halfway there. And
stats would say it.
I so felt what Scotty Scheffler said a week ago, and he kind of went on this rant about, listen, it's great to win tournaments, and it's great, but it pales in comparison to the joy I get as a father, as a husband. They are why I do this, and I like to win, but the moment it starts affecting who I am as a person, the moment it starts dictating how I treat my wife, my kids, people around me, I'm done with this. The moment it starts to become the thing that tells me you have to treat everything else a certain way, I'm done with this. That doesn't mean I don't find enjoyment in it, but it's fleeting. He says, I mean, I win a tournament, we celebrate for 10 or 12 minutes, and then it's, hey, what are we going to have for dinner? It's one of those things. Like, I'll never forget. Mike Fisher is a buddy of mine, and his wife is Carrie Underwood, one of the world's leading country music singers, like phenomenal, great people. And in a conversation one time, it's like, well, what's tour like when she goes on tour and she's, a show every other night? Like that's crazy. Like, you and I played, professional sports and the travel, and you played, 80 some odd hockey games, or however many hockey games they play in a year, which is a ton, and you're in a new city all the time. But man, like, a music tour is something on a whole different scale, I think. Like, what's it like? It's like she comes off stage and comes in the bus and still has laundry to do. You still got to do, you still got to, at the time they had a newborn, still having to feed the baby, and like, it's so, it teaches you that, and at the end of the day, who cares? Like at some time, at some moment, the Bible says that it's appointed unto man once to die and then to face judgment. At some point, it doesn't matter what heights or what levels of success we achieved on this earth. That doesn't matter at all. It's appointed unto you and unto me. Doesn't matter what our bank account is. We're going to face God. And so here I am halfway there, and I'm going, what matters is that I tell people more about that. Not that they know more about me and what I did on the football field or what I didn't do on the football field. That's how those experiences have shaped me. It's ultimately that that the kids that we talked about, that I get to be a part of their lives, and they listen to me because I threw a football well, that I wore a certain emblem on my helmet for a certain amount of time, and so I get to have their ear for a little while. They don't care that I was a backup. It doesn't matter to them. That's not,
Amen.
that's all they care about.
Yeah. Do you care about them is what they care about.
The real needs in their life, not selfishly, but the real needs in their life, they're wondering, how can I serve them? They're wondering, how is this need going to be met? I got a young man that I've been mentoring for about 3 years. Rough home life, and he's tried to push me out and years ago, and I just kept pushing back in. Like, you're not going to push me. Like, I'm going to be a part of this. We're going to work through some of these things together. And now he allows me the opportunity to help him, and he'll take advice from me, or he'll call me for advice, or what do you think, or what should I do, or how should I handle this, or can you slide me a $20 bill, whatever it is. He doesn't care that I never won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
He doesn't care that I never became a starter. All he knows is that I love him.
Yeah.
And that I want to care for him however I can. And I'm here to help however I can. That's all that matters to him.
Yeah.
And so it put everything in a completely different light, that man, our accomplishments here on earth, they can make us feel good for a moment, but at the end of the day, it's like Jesus said, it's just filthy rags, man.
That's it. And it's like anything you look at in the same way, you played a super long career, right? I mean, the NFL average career is 3 years or a little under or whatever it is. So you quadrupled that, and then you say what you just said. And to a lesser degree, I think back to my time even. At the end of the day, it all ends at a certain point. And when it ends, it ends. And the main thing is, like, what did we learn from it? In hearing you talk, there's this one statement that just kept coming back to my ear. I forget who to give credit for, but it's not mine. Somebody else deserves a credit. But people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Right? So all these experiences we have, whether you're starter, backup, scout team, whatever avenue of life you're in, that maybe you're thinking you're a success if, or you're a failure if. At the end of the day, what I have to look back, if I was to look back in the world's eyes at my time at Michigan State, there's really no other way to characterize it in the world's eyes other than a failure. Didn't end up in starting, didn't end up in scholarship, didn't end up failure, right? But that's not how God looks at things. God just wants to give us those experiences. He's got things according to his plan, Proverbs 16:9, that you're talking about, for us to live out if we'll follow him, even though we could be as clueless as possible. I think of things that God's done to use me in my life.
Right.
I wish I could say I was fully aware of the playbook and the strategy as to why it was a certain play. I wasn't. I didn't know, but I know he used it because feedback comes back to you. But the reality is that failure, if that quote unquote failure, even if we use the world's definition of it, if it makes us humble and forges us, basically sheds that self-pride and that self-arrogance away so that we can have open eyes and hearts to care for people, that's what this whole thing is all about. So if in us, and he's working on all of us, Man, by the way, I don't know if you're a music guy, but Crowder and Zach Williams just came out with a song called Still.
Yeah.
But by the way, it's my recommendation for the day. But anyways, it's that reminder that this is a process we sign up for, and that he's still working on us. Any failure that brings humility, that allows us to see and desire to empathize through somebody else's experience, that creates a connection so his name can be glorified. That's what all this stuff is about. That's what the Conqueror's Way is about. It's what your testimony is about. So I really appreciate you, Luke. I just looked at the clock and realized I've kept you over. So thank you for your graciousness for letting us to blow past the time. And let's just hope this isn't the be all end all, not the last one. But I'll wrap this one up right now, just saying thank you for sharing your story, giving your time, and just being able to offer others maybe some hope and inspiration through your experience.
Well, buddy, thanks for having me, and I'm so glad our paths crossed almost
Amen.
2 years ago now.
Yeah,
in
amen, man.
Hope, Michigan.
That's it, man.
And I love what you're doing with the Conqueror's Way, man, and keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks. Hey, I appreciate that encouragement too. And hey, for now, we'll just sign off and say, see you next time.